Okay, by way of announcement, first of all, today in the lab and Wednesday in lab, brains and cats will all be out. I'll have the other little kids in there helping me show you guys all the endocrine glands. At some point,
So we gotta work down.
smell and touch the endocrine glands. So it shouldn't take us the whole time. At the bottom, just want to, they won't all have them like the thyroids are messed up on a couple of them. So I want you to see them in the lab. So you come to the lab, fully clothed, you know, you have scrubs, that'd be great to wear. Shoes, no flip-flop sandals, socks, and so I'm going to provide you with gloves. Just want you to be able to touch all the endocrine. So we'll look at the pineal again. I know y'all found that in the fall. Let's see that again. We'll look at the sheet model, feed the pituitary, and we'll look at all the cats to find thyroid, pancreas, adrenal, kidney, heart, thymus, and I want you to touch them for the lab this week. All right, and then hopefully sometime Wednesday during the lecture, hopefully we'll switch gears to heart, and then I'll do heart last Wednesday, Friday, Monday. We'll have review day next Wednesday, and test Friday of the week from this Friday. It's coming quick, yeah? So, all right, so we started our journey through the endocrine glands. The vast majority of the class watched the video and made notes, which I think will help today. If you did that, you received extra credit for this course for having submitted that for Friday's class meeting. All right, so we had started with the thyroid gland, and I told you that the thyroid gland makes thyroid hormone, and it influences so many body systems. But if you had to say, like, what is it for, then you gotta say the thyroid gland is for metabolism. So it increases the basal metabolic rate. It's like fuel. In other words, it causes the engine to burn, which is the human body. But remember we said that that's not it, right? Because essentially we can tie thyroid function to every body system at some level. But this is the one that we really emphasized. Now, before we leave thyroid hormone, I want to show you one more thing. Thyroid hormone, this is a cartoon picture from your textbook of how you make the hormone. And you don't need to know all the steps here, but I want to point out something to you here that is important, and something that'll tie to something clinical I want to say. And that is, in order to make thyroid hormone, you have to attach iodine. So this is the picture here of the two versions of thyroid hormone. This one on the left-hand side is called T4, or sometimes, what's the prefix for 4? Tetra? So we sometimes call it tetra iodothyronine. You hear it? Tetraiodothyronine. This is thyroxine. This is the hormone that the gland makes. And look, 1, 2, 3, 4 iodines. Now, this hormone, thyroid hormone here, is an in-betweener. It's a tweener on our hormone list. So we're going to go back and forth here. Let me show it to you here, because when you're looking at the tables, at the very beginning, we were talking about water-soluble stuff in those tables. Y'all remember that? Remember, we're talking about how lipids do and how the water-solubles do. And we said that steroids are made in 2 places, and this is how they work. They bind to DNA, right? We said hormones made from amino acids do this. They use second messengers. But look at what this says. Except thyroid hormone. So thyroid hormone is actually constructed out of 2 tyrosine amino acids. So you stick 2 tyrosines together and you add 4 iodines to it. That is thyroid hormone. Now, because of the side groups on the tyrosine, it's actually nonpolar, which means it can get through the cell membrane. This is an exception to our rule. Thyroid hormone is made from amino acids, but its mechanism of action is like lipids. Okay, so I want to add a couple things to that. Let's add a couple things here to that. Okay, so notice that the version of thyroid hormone made by the gland is called T4. It's thyroid hormone. It's made from 2 tyrosine amino acids, and it's got 4 iodines attached to it. We call it thyroxine or T4 or tetraiodothyronine. Now, this guy can get through the cell membrane, no problem. But here's the problem. Even though this guy can get through the cell membrane, it won't bind to the receptor. So in order for the hormone to work, in order for it to bind to its receptor, you have to cut an iodine off of it. So the active form, that is the form of the hormone that binds to the receptor, is actually T3. Now this is not a problem. And so some students will ask me, well, why not just make T3? Why do we make T4 if T3 is the one that binds the receptor? And the answer to that question is because there is a protein carrier in your blood that likes T4. In other words, we have available to us at any given time plenty of thyroid hormone to do what we need to do. Because as the gland produces the hormone, it can be bound to a protein and kept in the plasma until you need it. Isn't that cool? So this is the engine hormone. So you can see how important it is. And so that hormone that binds that protein that binds the T4 is called thyroxine binding globulin, TBG. It binds thyroid hormone, carries it around. Whenever the cell needs the thyroid hormone, it can let it go, goes through the membrane without any trouble, chops the iodine off, binds to the receptor, off metabolism goes. Now let me think just a little bit further about this. Like what do you mean metabolism? What is human body metabolism? Well, it's the process of making energy for life, right? So if you had to say, well, what is the way we make energy? Like, how do you do that? There should be something from your past. Junior high, you did it. High school, you did it. Freshman stuff, you did it. In any science class, you did it. It sounds like this. Just nod if this sounds vaguely familiar. Glucose is converted into pyruvate. And pyruvate joins the citric acid cycle, where it makes reduced coenzymes. And the reduced coenzymes go to the mitochondria, and at the mitochondria level, you make loads of ATP. Yeah? Okay, now, to do that, those are chemical reactions. And in order to run those reactions, you need enzymes. Follow the logic, y'all. This is logical. You need enzymes in order to run the reactions of metabolism. Where did they come from? Enzymes are proteins. Where do proteins come from? Proteins come from transcription and translation processes. Well, how would you transcribe, what in your body would tell the body cell to transcribe and translate enzymes for metabolism? T3, bound to its receptor. Do you see the progression? So this is the metabolic hormone right here. You're going to elevate all those enzymes that convert glucose into pyruvate, oxaloacetate, and pyruvate to citric acid, and citric acid coenzymes. Those are all enzyme things. And when this guy hits as its transcript initiator, the promoter region, these enzymes are going to start jacking up inside human body cells. Such a cool process. It's the metabolism hormone. Okay, T4 and T3. Now the second one we mentioned was, oh, wait, there's one more thing I was going to say here before I go to calcitonin, because we talked a little bit about calcitonin last time, but I want to say one more thing here, and I want to go with the picture. Okay, so this young lady has, can you kill the lights for me? You can see it better. Can y'all see the lump in the neck here? So that is a thyroid goiter. The thyroid gland is huge. So there are multiple ways to do this. So just by looking at her, you may not know exactly what's going on. You probably do, but you may not, because you guys already know from what I said last time, increased thyroid hormone levels, sweat, energy, hyped up, yeah, eat all you want. Low thyroid, and then real skinny, right? Low thyroid, no metabolism, you gain weight, eating celery sticks, y'all remember all that? So you can't really see her body, so you may not know exactly, but she's got a goiter right here. The question is the goiter caused by not enough thyroid hormone or too much? Okay, so this person down here has too much. So let's talk about the feedback mechanism and do this together, all right? So here's how it works. So here's how you control the hormone levels. The hypothalamus makes TRH. We talked about this before. I gave you a table. TRH goes to the anterior pituitary by way of portal vessels. Everybody tracking? It's the portal system. The anterior pituitary makes TSH. TSH then released from the anterior pituitary goes to the thyroid gland and causes it to make thyroid hormone. Now, do you see these dotted lines over here? Those dotted lines represent inhibition. In other words, the reason why thyroid hormone levels don't get out of control is because these hormones, specifically here thyroid hormone, as the levels increase, will communicate with the upstream producers and tell them to stop. Okay, so that makes good sense. Well, one last feature, and then I'll tell you about the goiter. This hormone right here, the anterior pituitary, TSH, or thyroid stimulating hormone, this guy right here, and there are several hormones in our bodies that do this. Growth hormone is obvious, but this is another one, and there are some others, and I'll mention them as we go. These hormones are called trophic. Now, I'm not going to ask you that on a test, but you need to know that thyroid stimulating hormone is not just causing the elevated production of the hormone. It also makes the gland grow. So that's one reason why you want the thyroid gland to keep it under control, because the gland is epithelial, it's sloughing cells, You need new cells, and that mitotic rate is regulated by the hormone, TSH. So here's what I'm telling you. If the level of this hormone gets out of control, then you'll get a big swollen thyroid gland because it makes the gland grow. So normally, so the most common in our country's history, the most common type of thyroid hormone is called an endemic or an iodine deficiency hormone. So iodine is really concentrated in dark leafy green vegetables and seafood. And so there was a whole time in the history of our country where the incidence, like if you track the incidence of thyroid goiters all along the coast of the country, you never saw it. But all through the Midwest and the central portions of the country where they didn't have ready access to the seafood, there was a higher percentage of the population with goiters. And here's why. Oh, I should mention, the next time you're in Walmart, grab yourself a little bottle of salt off the shelf and read what it's called. What does it say? It is iodized. Why is that? Because we passed laws in our country that forces the people who purify and manufacture salt to add iodine to it. So this iodine deficiency goiter never, do y'all know anybody who has an endemic iodine deficiency goiter? It just never happens. Because the salt that we ingest has iodine attached. And this is why. So that we can make thyroid hormone. So this picture, right? Okay, so let's do it here and then we'll show the picture. So let's say you don't have enough iodine in your diet to make enough thyroid hormone. Then you don't have enough thyroid hormone. So this line right here that inhibits the production of TSH, you're going to lose that line. With me? So losing the inhibition is going to cause this hormone level to, and as it does, it just keeps trying to tell the gland to make more thyroid hormone, but there's no iodine to make it, and so it just keeps telling him more, yeah? The positive feedback thing. And before long, the gland will look like this. That is an iodine deficiency goiter right there. Now, there's another way to make a goiter. And this one is probably more common than the iodine deficiency now. This person has a condition here called exophthalmos, and I mentioned this in class to you last time. But you can see how the eyes look to be bulging here because of the burning of the adipose stores in the orbit of the eye. And so this is obvious, like you can see this, but there would be something else obvious. I wish they would have shown it on the picture. This person will also have a goiter right here. Because this disease right here, it's called Graves' disease, is a hyperthyroid condition. That's an autoimmune disorder. Like your immune system overproduces a protein that looks just like this and will bind to the thyroid gland. So Graves' disease is hyperthyroidism caused by the immune system producing a TSH-like antibody. The protein that looks just like TSH, it binds to the thyroid gland and makes it grow. But in this case, the binding of the TSH to the thyroid gland is going to cause increases in the production of thyroid hormone. The metabolism is going to be running out of control. These people are extraordinarily thin and hot all the time with Graves' disease. Okay, so those are the things I want to tell you about thyroid hormone. Questions and comments there? Everybody understand what these pictures are and why they look that way? Good? All right, so here's the next one. These are the parathyroids. Your textbook shows 4 of them right here. They are really difficult to find. We'll look today, but I've never seen one. I said, I know for sure that's parathyroid. Typically, they kind of embed themselves sometimes parathyroid tissue will be located, like there'll be one here, and one down here, one over here. This shows 4, but some people will have 3, some people will have 8. So this is just an example of, what you expect to maybe see for parathyroid. Why are they so important? Okay, so parathyroid glands make a hormone that acts as an antagonist to the other thyroid hormone. So I'm going to show you the picture again, and then we'll talk about the parathyroid hormone. So this is what I showed you last time. I said blood calcium levels are controlled in part by a thyroid hormone called calcitonin. And what I told you was calcitonin builds bones. You increase bone mass, and you store more calcium in the bones whenever calcitonin is around. The thyroid will only produce it when the calcium levels are plenty high in circulation. So, question, yeah? So if you injured a bone, yeah? If you have osteoporosis, yeah? Postmenopausal women are all encouraged to take calcium supplements. How does that work exactly? You take the calcium supplement, you absorb it into circulation, and then the thyroid gland detects that elevated calcium level, and where does it put it? In the bones. So calcitonin, it causes blood calcium levels to fall by causing the storage of calcium in the skeletal system. We like calcitonin. Build the bones. Now notice, its antagonist is parathyroid hormone. So if there is a low level of calcium, parathyroid hormone will actually cause the bones to release calcium and cause elevations in blood calcium levels. Why would you want to keep plenty of calcium in your diet? To protect your skeletal system. Now, I'm hoping some of you will remember this when I say it. I also taught you that in order for the nervous system to release neurotransmitters, calcium has to enter the end of the nerve cells. You remember that? So, the thyroid gland, let me show you the picture, the thyroid gland and the parathyroid gland. So, you can see here, this says it promotes normal adult nervous system function. So what it's telling you is the hormones of the thyroid gland are involved in regulating calcium. And by doing so, you can change the nature of nervous system function with either too much thyroid hormone or not enough, or too much parathyroid hormone or not enough. In this case, too much parathyroid hormone would not be the problem. Yeah? Okay, so I just wanted you to tag those things together right here as we're talking about this. But here's the last piece on the parathyroid hormone, because if you get to be an old person, and I hope that you do, have a long, healthy, and wonderful life. If you do, you're going to think about these things as you get older. So I had a big conversation last night with my wife and her mom about cramping in her muscles in her legs and her diet and her coffee intake. I did the whole thing with her. Yeah, she trusts me. My family doesn't. My sister's like, you don't know, you're just my big brother. Okay, well, it's very frustrating. I like having you guys here. You have to listen to me. Write it down. It is what I said it is. Write it down. All right, so here's what's going to happen as you get older, especially in the female population, because the way estradiol and progesterone interact with this system is a whole other story. But if your ovaries stop working, and by that I mean producing lots of estradiol, 17 beta, and progesterone, if they do that, which happens in your 40s and 50s to females, this is what happens. The ovaries just stop doing their thing. And if that happens, you're going to have to start thinking about blood calcium levels. Now, let me throw a wrench in what you just heard, because there's so many ways to treat this now. They're so good. Nobody should have osteoporosis. Like my dad he was diagnosed with metastatic prostate cancer, very aggressive. It was in his spine, his scapula. It had metastasized osteoblast bone producing cells up and down his spinal column. And when they cut all the testosterone out of his system, which was feeding those cells, all those cells were going to die. And so my first question was, when all those cancerous osteoblasts die, his bones are going to get porous. And he can break his back just by jumping out of the back of his truck, which he loves to do. Doc said, that's not going to be a problem. And explained the drug to me, etc. And I'm not going to do all that with you, but it's very cool. And this is available to anybody now. He said, we're going to put a reclass regimen in place. And I said, that's what my mother-in-law got years ago. They put this regimen in place. It's going to elevate the activity of resident osteoblasts, increase the number of normal cells. And I said, are you going to do a scan afterwards to check? And he said, no need. This is 100% guaranteed. And he was right. That's been almost 6 years ago. My dad's had no trouble with that. So what I'm telling you is, encourage the people that you love to get checked. Yep. Simple bone scans can tell if there's evidence of osteoporosis. And this is the hormone system we're thinking about. Thyroid hormone and parathyroid hormone. So, question. If parathyroid hormone causes calcium to be pulled out of the bones, isn't that a bad thing? So I've had students before, this is a very acute type of treatment, and I don't think it's done anymore. But in the old days, they would give an injection of parathyroid hormone to osteoporotic women in order to increase their bone health. And I saw, well, look, so you went, that's backwards. That doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that? Okay, so let me explain to you how the body actually uses parathyroid hormone. It's a much healthier situation than you might expect. Your textbook shows you this picture and goes, look, this is what happens. Calcitonin builds bones, parathyroid hormone tears them down. But it's not quite that simple. Let me show you what really happens so that you can be instructive to the people that you love. Okay, so this is a picture from your book right here showing hypocalcemia and low blood calcium. We don't want that. We don't want that. That'll mess with your nervous system. That'll mess with your digestive system. That'll mess with your bones. That'll mess with your muscles. That's bad. Increases in PTH from the parathyroid glands cause, you see the number 1 over here? An increase in osteoclasts. Osteoclasts are the cells that tear down bone, not build it. Increase osteoclast activity to release calcium into the blood, and you get this. And everybody goes, please, I don't want any parathyroid hormone, right? Just hang on. The next one says that parathyroid hormone increases calcium reabsorption in kidney tubes. So there's a direct binding site in the PCT that helps us reabsorb additional calcium, the protein manufacturing process there, second messenger system, the whole thing's known. Your kidneys are going to keep calcium in blood when PTH is around. Got it? Okay, and then the last one, this is the most interesting, activation of vitamin D. Now, vitamin D, as it turns out, increases calcium absorption. But can we get more dramatic? Without appropriate levels of vitamin D, your intestines will not absorb calcium. It'll just go right through you. You got to have activated vitamin D. 1,25-dihydrocholecalciferol. Yeah, this is big time for the calcium understanding. So here's the last piece. We'll put them together right here. This is a picture out of a different textbook, but it's beautiful in teaching students what this hormone is actually doing. Okay, so this has got so many ramifications. Like, why do you feel better when you go outside? Like, this is part of the story right here. Okay, so sunlight actually takes in your skin an inactive form of vitamin D and turns it into something that is more akin, closer to something that we need. So this is called vitamin D3. Now, as this stuff runs through the circulatory system and ends up in the liver, excuse me, the liver adds an OH, a hydroxyl group, to this guy and makes it into a mono vitamin D3. And this one doesn't do you much good either. But as the levels of this stuff increase in circulation in the blood, and they make their way to the kidney, lo and behold, at the level of the kidney, they're going to find cells there that love to bind parathyroid. And at the level of the kidney, the parathyroid hormone is going to do two things. It's going to increase the reabsorption rate of calcium. That's a good thing. And number two, it's going to make vitamin D active. This is the final hydroxylation step, happens at the level of the kidney, and you make vitamin D. And this allows, this vitamin D3 is going to allow the intestine, I've got kidneys here too, to allow the intestine to absorb calcium. So, under normal body circumstances, like your normal functioning of your body every day, if you've got calcium in your diet, then you want parathyroid hormone. Do you see it? You want it. Because it's going to cause the kidneys to reabsorb it and vitamin D to become active. Parathyroid hormone, for normal diets, people who live and get enough calcium, is fantastic for us. It's really good. That's why a calcium supplement could really be helpful with a parathyroid injection. So that's why they would do it in the old days. Load them up with a bunch of calcium, give them a PTH injection, and the intestines just suck that stuff into circulation, and then calcitonin responds and stores it in the bones. So this impact, let's go back one more time. You should put a circle right here, y'all. This is real. Put a circle right here. This phenomenon is clinical. This is clinical, meaning parathyroid hormone does this only if you don't have enough calcium in your diet. It will only tear your bones down if it has to. This is the mechanism. This mechanism right here is what parathyroid hormone normally does. So it's really not bad. It's really not a bad hormone. It's only bad if you're not getting enough calcium in your diet. Okay, questions about PTH? Y'all understand how that works? Calcitonin and PTH, yeah.
So what was the second thing you said? You said parathyroid hormone increases the absorption rate of calcium and then does what?
Yeah, these two things. So parathyroid hormone is headed to your kidneys, and that's where it's going to be the good. It's going to bind to cells and cause calcium to stay in my body. And it is the final activation step for vitamin D. And the active vitamin D will allow your intestines to absorb calcium. So anything in your diet now just pours into circulation with PTH route. Okay. Next on the list, oh yeah, so this kind of says it right here. I wrote it out right here. Sorry, I should put this one up. Yeah, this right here. Only when there's not enough dietary, right? Then you do this. Otherwise, you do the good stuff for kidneys and calcium, parathyroid hormone, elevating blood levels of calcium. All right, let's do adrenal. The adrenal gland is actually 4 different glands. its name, adrenal, makes you think adrenaline, and that's really only one part of the gland. So I'll point down here. You see how these cells look a little different? The adrenal medulla cells. They are called, the video and your text calls them the chromaffin cells, CHROMAFFIN. The chromaffin cells of the adrenal medulla. These cells that are part of the adrenal medulla developmentally came from the tissue that made the nervous system. They think they're neurons. And so what you learned in the fall about norepinephrine and how norepinephrine does the fight or flight thing, elevates your heart rate, turns off your digestive system, the stress hormone, norepinephrine, epinephrine. These guys make both of them, epinephrine and norepinephrine, but primarily 80% of it is epinephrine, or the hormone that we call adrenaline, made by the adrenal medulla. So, like I said, adrenaline is part of the stress response, and I've got 2 slides where I'm going to emphasize that here in just a second. So let's look at just the first piece right here. So this is the relationship of norepinephrine and epinephrine. You don't need to memorize the structures, but what do you notice here? They look very similar. You see that? They're very similar. There's only a methyl group here. And so whether you're in the nervous system, like a sympathetic nervous system response, fight or flight, or the adrenal gland is producing adrenaline, these guys look the same, and they bind to the same receptors. Anybody remember what the name of the receptors are? Adrenaline, they are adrenergic. Y'all remember that? Adrenergic, A-D-R-E-N-E-R-G-I-C. Adrenergic. So the adrenergic receptors bind these things and cause a sympathetic response. Like what? Heart rate goes up, blood pressure goes up. What about the airway? Open the airway, more oxygen. What about the coronary arteries? Open them up, more blood flow to the heart. What about the blood vessels in your muscles in your legs? Open them up. What about the blood vessels in your digestive system? Shut them down. What about the blood vessels in the kidneys and the urinary system? Shut them down, yeah? So the systems necessary for survival promoted by adrenaline here during a stress response. The nervous system does it. The adrenal gland contributes with a hormone that does the same thing. Y'all, this constitutes what we call, here's the big fancy science term, the sympatho-adrenal axis stress response. The sympatho-adrenal axis stress response. It is like so important. It is like one of the most powerful systems in human physiology. And your body can't really tell the difference between psychological stress, I got an AMT test coming up, or physical stress. I'm running from a bear. And so either one of those is going to cause this to happen. And what I'm going to do here in about just a few minutes, I'm going to say this again, and I want you to think about it with me at how incredibly damaging stress can be to the human body. So if you have high blood pressure, what's one thing that the physician's going to tell you to do? You got to lower your stress. Yeah, that's because your blood pressure is up. And why is that? Because the adrenal gland is making adrenaline, and your sympathetic nervous system is releasing norepinephrine, and it's causing elevations in blood pressure that are not healthy for you. Right. Don't be stressed. You're stressing me out, Warren. Okay. So here's the other 2 right here. The other 3. The gland, so that's the inside part of the gland. The outside part of the gland is made up of 3 different layers. You can see them labeled here: the reticularis, fasciculata, and the glomerulosa. 3 different layers. The reticularis we're going to save and talk more about in the last unit of this course. This part of the adrenal gland makes androgens, A-N-D-R-O, androgens. Those are male sex hormones, and they're made in both women and men. So it does happen where there is a situation, where the zona reticularis has metastatic or non-metastatic cells that develop there, cancers in the adrenal gland. This young lady, you can see, is developing facial hair that is not normal, and that is a result of an androgen oversupply produced by the zona reticularis. All right. So we're going to talk more about it later, because androgens contribute to the development of the other sex hormones, and they're involved also in other things. But I'm going to wait for that with testosterone and estrogen. We're going to put them all together later. The middle layer is the biggest one here. This one's called the zona fasciculata, and it makes a group of hormones called glucocorticoids. Glucocorticoids. What does that make you think of? Glucose, sugar. Now, the zona fasciculata hormone is cortisone, or cortisol. And if you ask someone, what is the stress hormone? The answer is, and appropriately so, the stress hormones are the glucocorticoids. But I thought you said the adrenal medulla is making stress hormones. You see what I'm doing here? We're going to tie all these together. They all are contributing to the same phenomenon, human survival. So this middle layer is the glucocorticoids. Number 1 hormone there is cortisol. I want to talk more about that. So just give me, I'm going to finish that on Wednesday. I want you to think about stress together. And I'm going to stress you out more by telling you how bad stress is. Okay, so the glucocorticoids. The third layer is the zona glomerulosa. This layer of the adrenal cortex makes a hormone called aldosterone. And aldosterone is also involved in a very elegant hormone control system for elevating blood pressure. So collectively, the story of this gland that sits right on top of the kidney, put your hand on it today in the lab, this gland right here, the adrenal gland, collectively, what we can say is that this gland is the gland that runs all the hormone story for stress. So what I need to do now, it's going to take me 20 minutes to do it, is I need to detail out the glucocorticoids and the aldosterone story so that you can then think about the gland as a whole at the end. And then we're going to do pancreas and pineal, and that's all the hormones we're going to do for now, because I will do all the thymus hormones with immunity, I'll do all the reproductive hormones with the reproductive system. I'll do all the GI hormones with the GI system. So y'all learned about luteolin and other gastric hormones made in that video you watched. I'm going to hit them, but we're going to wait for the GI system to do them. So I want to hit all the ones in this chapter that I'm not going to get a chance to talk about later. All right, so that sets me up to do the glucocorticoids and aldosterone on Wednesday. So you guys, if you need to get stuff for lab, go get it. We'll get lab started about 12:30. I'll have some other kids in there to show you some endocrine glands in the laboratory today.